Welcome to the Big Story segment of the BDTV Breakfast Show, where we discuss key issues shaping our nation and economy at large. I am Bethel Olujobi. Today we are focusing on MSMEs in Nigeria, exploring the challenges, solutions, and untapped opportunities in the sector. Micros, small and medium-scale enterprises, popularly referred to as MSMEs, are viewed as the engine of economic growth in any economy. This is because they are key drivers of job creation, innovation, and overall economic development, contributing significantly to GDP and employment, especially in emerging economies. According to the Small and Medium Enterprises Development Agency of Nigeria, SMEDAN, an agency of the federal government saddled with the responsibility of policy formulation and advocacy for SMEs, there are about 39.7 million SMEs in Nigeria as of 2020. But to what extent have the SMEs in Nigeria fulfilled their engine of growth, economic growth role? What has been their success story, prospects, and challenges? What are they facing with the Nigerian business environment? Could they have done much better if exposed to a more conducive operating environment supported by funding and better infrastructure? Well, these and more are our focus on the show today. And to help us do justice to the discussion is Mr. Real One Bello. Bello is an entrepreneur and co-founder of Verstans Limited. Welcome and thank you for joining me this morning in the studio. Bello.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
How are you feeling today?
Good.
Well, that's wonderful. Well, we'll just jump right into the discussion, right? Get right into it. I want to ask you, Bello, how is business?
Yeah, like a typical Nigeria, we're thanking God, we're surviving, we're thriving, irrespective of the macro headwinds that is happening within the country. And if there's anything you can give to Nigerian business owners, we would always strive and, try to survive and adapt to whatever challenges that is being thrown at us. So that's the summary that I would say.
All right, so I understand Verstans Limited to be an agribusiness, right?
An advisory and consulting for agribusiness.
Now, as an entrepreneur yourself, you are the CEO, you founded it, you co-founded it. What are some of the challenges, major challenges that you think have constrained you from where you are right now and where you want to be?
Okay, so there's no one answer to that question, right? Because being an advisory and consulting service company, it's a service-based business. You don't have physical product that you're selling. So the things you start wondering, the things that start being a limiting factor for you is the sector you are serving, which is what we're discussing today, the MSME sector. And our thesis for fund investors is simple. The big businesses, the big boys, the likes of the Holland, the flour mills and the like, they could afford KPMG for strategy, they could afford PwC and the likes for strategy, for certain advisory support to scale their operation. And we believe that these small other guys too, they need similar help. They can't afford those services, right? So can they find someone that understands where they are, meet them where they are, and provide those advisory support for them, right? And I'll give you an example. So as a small business owner, you're probably wondering, oh, you ask 10 of them today now, what's your challenge? Everybody will say funding. But if you give the 10 of them that money today, I can assure you that the rate of success would be less than 10% at the end of the day. Why is that a problem, right? So these are things that we look at and we say, okay, there needs to be more support in terms of advisory support to these SMEs. Many of them can engage in research to understand the market they are serving, right? SMEDAN saying 39.7 million number of SMEs in Nigeria as at 2020.
Yes. And by the way, this agency has also reported that number dropped between 2017 and 2020.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's not something to take joy in, because when you look at the majority of these businesses, they were founded on the back of lack of choice. So most people are not set out to establish business and grow their venture, right? And so you want to find those that have the mindset right from the start to scale these businesses, not just to open a shop. There's a difference between running a shop and trying to build an entity that would become something bigger.
So I would ask you, what key factors are hindering businesses, small or medium scale businesses, from scaling? You talked about the issue of expanding, right? What moves them from being small to successfully scaling in Nigeria?
I think there's more than one way to look at it, right? And the first thing I will say is it starts from the entrepreneur itself, right? When you look at what the person behind the business, that's the first thing. When people are investing in startups or and what you're saying in tech, people first invest in the person behind the business. So you as an individual, what credibility, what pedigree, what resources do you have before venturing into business? Now it's easy to bank on that, knowing that okay, we know this guy, he has done this, he has worked there, this is his qualification. We think he's smart, we think he's resourceful. That is the first layer of business that we need when we talk about people going into entrepreneurship, right? And when that is in place, then it's easy to now build on top of that. So that's where the issue of funding comes in. And when we're talking about funding, it's not just funding from okay, government free money all the time, right? But when people are averse to that aspect of okay, understanding how finance work, such person can grow that venture, right? That's why the first thing is the knowledge of the people that are venturing into business first. We need to do a lot more. Organizing entrepreneurship program for 1 million people is not sufficient, right? Can we be a bit more streamlined to the point that okay, we want to grow, transform 100 SMEs in Nigeria this year from say 10 million naira revenue to 100 million naira revenue? You know, what would it take us to get to that place? Yes. Then we can create special programs that makes this already highlighted through rigorous process that is transparent, that is fair, that people could talk about the rigorosity of it and how transparent the process is. You can get more people to believe that they have a chance at success, where somebody knows that okay, I have this idea, have this capability. If I put in for this application, I should be able to get it. And then they go through such process to scale their mindset, their operation capacity, their efficiency to run their businesses. So for me, the first thing to invest in, if you're going to transform Nigeria small business space, is the mindset of the people behind it. We need to be able to think institutionally. We need to be able to think in decades, not just today, make money today and buy a car tomorrow off the money you made today. I hope that helps.
Now, if you ask the average entrepreneur, what is the problem? Why haven't you, what's hindering your business success? They say funding, as you rightly said. Yeah. So now moving beyond there's a ton of discussion about it, funding, loans, right, from Bank of Industry, from, yes. Yeah. What other, first of all, where is the disconnect? Why are businesses unable to access this money, right? And then how can businesses better position themselves for it? First of all, that's first one, right? Oh, then the second question is, in the absence of this, what are some of the alternative funding sources?
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Yes, without taking any thing away from the challenges of funding, right? It's clear. There's a big funding gap for businesses in Nigeria. Even for the big businesses, right? There's a project you want to do. There are not enough commercial banks in Nigeria that can even chest such transactions. You need multinationals, you need DFIs to come into it, right? Because of the scale. I mean, that's private capital. It's not as much as in abundance in Nigeria. Now, though there are still some, right? To
supply 39.
There's still some to supply those ones. But the challenge most time is the quality of the information available, the transparency of the process to access this funding, right? How do I know that my application is being treated? What do I need to know about what the requirement for these fundings are? Many times people just fill the form. They don't understand, okay, what's the thematic focus of this fund? The business that is also applying, they also don't understand the funding mix that they need, right? The financing mix. It's not, there's equity financing, right? There's debt capital, there's a mixed use, right? Now, it also matters that, okay, when you are applying, you understand the business you're doing, what kind of financing is optimal for it, right? So sometimes when you're applying for a funding and there are certain use of fund that you highlighted on the need why you need that fund, and it doesn't tally with the objective of the funding, right? This doesn't separate the fact that we've had so many abuses in the system. So you've had, I mean, you've seen the stories about the Ankobora program, the NEPSA, all these COVID-19 support funds where people just think that it's free money, right? And eventually the system gets abused, right? So that for us, it's a major challenge because for every funding that goes out and it's not properly accounted for, is an opportunity denied for other serious businesses. So one of the things that can be done with respect to that is to ensure that, okay, the quality of the information that is released per this particular funding, the focus of those funding and the people managing the funding, right? It has to be a lot more transparent, like I said. And for me, that's the most important thing about funding space. Now, you talked about what are the other alternatives that businesses can.
Just to note, getting loans from banks has become a major issue for many because the interest rate is high, right? For people who cannot afford the interest rate that are being offered. So that's why now the question now becomes, okay, what are the alternative sources?
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, the banking is understandable. Everybody is expect to the MPR rate, and what we can ask for is for government to have a concessionary. I mean, we've had the concessionary that I've used before, but redesign them to be optimal. Now, beyond that, I think there's also the power of community, where entrepreneurs can create communities of like minds, a cooperative model. And if you know cooperatives, the financing terms are usually relaxed, maybe 10%, 20% in a year, 10% mostly, right? You have a business that you are doing and you have a clear line of sight of your revenue, receivables, and the like. Having a community of similar businesses around yourself, coming together could help through that cooperative to access financing at a very safe and soft term. I feel that is one for the players in the non-structured sector. Many of us, our parents, use the cooperatives to support us through growing up, right? We can also go into that for businesses. This is something that we're seeing not just in Nigeria, right? There are a number of global enterprises that today that ordinarily they did not start as a big company. It's a group of cooperatives of individual small business owners that pool resources together to consolidate as one. And I'll give you an example. There's no reason why all of us in this room now, about 8 of us, we are selling the same product and producing it at the same time separately, when it costs us the same money to go to the same market where each and every one of us buy the same resources. I'll give you an example. Say somebody making soap. Women, when they're doing this women empowerment, you see this woman making shea butter, that one making coconut oil, and their whole capital is just about 100,000 naira, and every one of them take over the same cost every day, transport cost, the same packaging cost. What if we consolidate as a group through a cooperative model, right? And then that 100,000 put together is ₦1 million starting capital. That transport cost, that buy raw material sourcing cost, you've been able to cut it down, and everybody is able to push the product. You have better distribution. So for me, I think that's something that a lot of small business owners need to also start thinking about. Okay, so I can't go to bank, but I should know 2, 3. I tell people all this all the time, and that's why the first thing I mentioned is that when you're setting up to start a business, it's very important that it's also what investors look at. Who is that person behind the business? Can he raise funds? Now, it's very important that you have the pedigree to say, okay, you have some financing need that should not take long. you have a circle of close community that you can easily say, okay, can you advance me this float, and don't worry, I'll handle it. And I have testimonies for that, right? Where businesses were able to support them through float because we know the people behind it, we know their pedigree, and so they don't have to go through the stringent commercial bank terms. So for me, that's another thing that business owners need to think about.
So what do I do as, say I'm an entrepreneur, I have an entrepreneurial mindset, I want to start a business, a micro business with less than 10 employees, I don't have much money, I am I'm unknown, right? I do not have the PR, right, to pull resources from a community. And I go to a bank and I can't, the interest rate is too high for me. What do I do?
So two things that we have to always think about is cash flow is it's like the backbone of every business, right? So if there's no clear line of, okay, this is how you're gonna make money, nobody's going to believe in your ideas. So what you need to do is, as an entrepreneur, find a ways to validate that this idea that I have exists. It's valid, right? There's a value for it. Somebody is willing to pay for it. You have there are other things you can do.
And who are these people I'm trying to validate?
So that's okay. I'll probably use this analogy for you. So you have a product that you're trying to develop. Now, with this product, who is it solving problem for? Let's say the product is solving a problem for BusinessDay, right? And so you've gone to BusinessDay and say, okay, I have this product that is in the development. We are yet to, it's in the development. We want to know, okay, this is what we've discovered. And then I talk to whoever is in charge of, such business partnership to say, okay, is this something you guys would like to have? And so you're able, that's the means of validating informally too. They confirm to you that yes, we want it. Is it ready? Can we have it today? And I'll give you an example. We have a startup that we supported, and they are in the EV space in Nigeria, last mile, right? These guys worked on this keke, tricycle, electric one. So basically retrofitted. It's operational already. So because it's not a space for ads, so I wouldn't mention their name, okay. Right? When they came to us, the idea was already working. It's not yet commercialized. So when they came to us, the question was, okay, how are you thinking about this? So we asked questions about the challenges we could see. How are you thinking about this? How are you solving the energy problem? How are you solving the driver problem? How would they be able to pay you? And there will be questions, stories about, there's NURTW that arrested me today, so that's why I could not make my money and pay you. And when they answered all those questions, we felt like, okay, this has something, right? Is this problem genuine? Yes. Is this a real solution? Yes. Okay. So what do we need to do? Okay, we need to set up. They need to set up this. What would it cost to set up? And through our structure, we're able to support them, raise some sort of seed funding for them, right? On the back of knowing what they've done already. So nobody's going to fund you if you've not done anything, right? That shows me traction. Are you getting me? We are in Nigeria. It's in the other climb that you might have somebody just believe in your idea and just dash your money immediately. In Nigeria, people will only give you money with traction, right? Because everybody wants their money to be back, right? So for them, we're able to support them, and with that funding, they've been able to scale their operation, set up a station, have from just a single tricycle to now having about 50 tricycle in operation. Now they are setting up another station in somewhere, another place with another 100 tricycle coming in. Upon that, they've been able to receive, additional investment. So for me, the most important thing business owner, young entrepreneurs need to understand is traction is the most important thing, right? Validate that this business idea that you have actually is solving, there's a market for it.
So forward thinking, right? You mentioned it. So anticipating challenges or whatever roadblock there might be, and then proposing or also preparing to solve it or to navigate through it.
Showing how you're thinking about that, how you're intending to solve it.
And I mean, obviously, you've worked with so many SMEs,
Yeah.
right? Let's talk success stories. What are some businesses you've seen that have been able to, meet a roadblock, and how were they able to go through it? Obviously, everyone has some unique challenges, challenges that this person might experience might not be what you might face, right? So if, if you have some examples, it could be
Okay.
yours. It
Okay.
could be yours.
Yeah. Well, I like to follow stories on trajectory of businesses, right? So, and in Nigeria, I think the number that we can pick as a story of resilience and growth from small business to what they are today. And I'll give you an 2 to 3 example. One of them is Saru Agrosciences, right? Last year they acquired Presco, which is one of the top 2 agricultural firm on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Saru started in Nigeria in 1992. I think this is similar to somebody starting business last year with the way the economic headwind was in 1992, right? And today, see, acquiring such a business, a Dutch entity that is having market cap in billions of naira, that's something to say, okay, there can be growth. It's not just instant. Beyond Saru, which is now a very big business, I would probably pick someone everybody can recognize. So Fresh, So Fresh started as a single, I mean, LD meal. I'm not sure when they started what the culture of such food, such snacks is in Nigeria, but they saw a space for that, and they built a business with retail chains across the country now. Specifically from just, I could guess from maybe their kitchen in their house, scaling that business. So that's an example of Nigerian businesses that I would say start small, and today now we don't need to tell many people, oh, do you know So Fresh? You don't have to do so many descriptions to point them. There's another firm that I will probably mention. Many people may not also know it, but it's also another indigenous brand, Sundry Foods. You might not know Sundry Foods, but you probably know Market Square, Kilimanjaro, right? These are businesses that also start from one outlet in Port Harcourt, and now they are on to become one of the top 2 retail chain in Nigeria. So that for me are examples of success in Nigerian-owned businesses. Everything is here: the capital, the personnel, the leadership, and all of this is there are stories of about 2 decades, 3 decades, right? Which means we've seen Nigerians too. I mean, a decade, 2 decades, building something from one small unit to what is now having multiple footprints across different cities in the country. And I think that's something that we want to encourage more. People starting somewhere. The fact that you start here and you are making sales here, have to think about scaling such. If KFC can become global and bigger, in China today, Boba Tea, I don't know if you know Boba Tea, there was a company just last week that listed on their stock exchange. It now even has more footprint than KFC, right? Boba tea is kind of tea that specialty with those, if somebody can, that's what they're producing. If somebody can producing that and achieve that level of skill, I think we can also think about So Fresh also becoming that bigger brand, right, in that space where it's playing and becoming listed on the Nigerian stock market and the like. So for me, those are the success story that we want to see, and we want to see more small businesses replicating.
So, during your experience as a business yourself and working with businesses, right? What are some of the beyond the challenge of funding and infrastructure that we are aware of? What are some underrated obstacles that have stopped success, really, that you think new or even exist in this entrepreneurs should look out for?
I think one of the most something that people don't talk about often is the respect for rule of law and sanctity of contract, right? And this is a very, very, very difficult topic to address, because many businesses, they would not grow without the big businesses supporting them. And so you are producing, say, this item and you supply it to this big company, and then your receivable days is not sanctioned. Your receivable days, like what I receive when you are going to get money back for supplying, because they don't pay immediately. It's a credit word out there, right? And so your credit days, how many days are we supposed to get payment? It's not guaranteed. You have to start lobbying. I think that's something that kills a lot of businesses that has prospect debt. you know there's nothing you can do. People don't believe that they can go to court and sue. Those things, I feel that it's one big problem. If I know that I supply you, I fulfill my end of the supply, I have to fulfill my end of the contract, and my money must come in on every 5 business day, right? It's easy for me to even take bank loan, because I know that money, nothing will shake it. It will come in every 5 business days, and you can have inventory financing as a product from the financial institutions. But when you don't know, you've supplied, and then you start going like you're begging for your money, I think that's something that really, really significantly affects small businesses, right? People need to be able to respect contracts, right? You've had people, okay, pitch an idea, you know, demo a solution to institutions that they believe are big enough. This will solve their problem, and before you know it, someone is already backsliding on that contract, or giving it to someone else to do what you know without a competitive bidding process. It also applies to even government, right? There are so many businesses that could apply for government contract, but they don't believe that they will get it, right? Because the process is not as transparent. And these are the things that you can use to engender strong business environment where everybody has a chance at success, right? Either via working with a bigger corporate firm, or even working with government entities. So that for me is something that if there's more um, respect for rule of law, and people believe in the sanctity of contract, I think we might see a lot of changes, because I'm very sure there are so many people that they want to do business, but they don't have the mental or the capacity to go through these hurdles when they come around.
Very interesting. And I would ask you this, right? Usually I would ask, because we're running out of time, but usually I ask, what would the government do and all that. But I'll put it this way: if you had the power to change one policy or introduce a policy that will have a very big impact on your business or MSMEs in the country right now, what would it be, and why?
Um, I th I think that the last statement that I made would probably be the thing I would do when it comes to ease of doing business environment, right? To ease business, maybe a special court to handle business transaction for SMEs, where people are able to know that, okay, you can't cheat me if you've done what we're supposed to do, right? It unlocks significant value, right? It's among the things that it does, it reduces bribery in the cost of procurement. It ensures transparency in the procurement processes, and so everybody is able to bring in their best to the table. I think that's something that I would personally say that would really, really help businesses, because you can easily unlock capital too when everybody knows that there's property rights, that nobody will touch that thing. You have your intellectual property will not be stolen. There's so much that this thing, it's not fun. You don't get to hear people talk about it, but there's so much that you can unlock in capacity and capabilities from people. Beyond that, I think another thing that would need to be done is, beyond doing for for large quantity, where you just want to train 1 million, as say you want to train one, can we move to quality? I say, okay, just like I said at the beginning of the program, can we help say this year we want to grow 100 businesses across these sectors into this number of revenue in a year? So what's the revenue benchmark for that sector. Maybe it's 50 million. We want to grow them to 500 million in a year. What would they need? And so we have, and this is something that is done in, say, China, right? You have big companies take on small companies and mentor those small companies to the point where they can receive external funding. So you don't just have one big company doing everything. There's, for example, just as an illustration, a a Dangote or a flour mill or an Olam, right? Bring off small businesses that are playing within that space, just a small entity, and they bring out like maybe 10 of them to mentor to grow, which means okay, probably provide some input into those companies' operation. They get some guidance from the leadership and management, right? And so these businesses grow to the point that okay, now they can receive external funding and they can stand on their own. You know, it's not just we need hundreds of such businesses in Nigeria, and that for me is one of the most important actions that government can decide to take over the optics of quantity. You know, quantity that they can't really survive on their own. They can support themselves. You know, these 39 million businesses you mentioned earlier. If you come down to it, how many of them are remitting taxes? Right? How many of them have an employee that has pension? You know, but with this structure, you bring in more people. There's increase in earning power, purchasing power, and so you have the multiplier effect on the overall sector.
And I would love to have this conversation, going on, but time is up. Before you go, I want to talk about innovation. AI is coming to the scene, and it's threatening jobs. Now, for an industry, MSMEs, that provides up to account for over 80% of jobs right now, jobs that people are losing, that security that they had, being part of an MSME. I mean, we talk about Child Tech recently cut about 89 people of their workforce, replaced them with artificial intelligence. So the question is, how do we find the balance of productivity and flexibility? How do we ensure that businesses can still do its job? MSMEs can still do their job as economic providers in terms of job opportunities and remain sustainable and productive.
So the first way to look at it is technology is an enabler, right? And so while AI is cutting some jobs, right, that has always been the way of technology. I mean, when typewriter came, when desktop computer came, it took away some jobs, right? So what matters the most is you can't fight it. So what can you learn from it, right? How can you use it to make your work more valuable? And I will agree that there are a number of jobs that are very redundant in what we do. It means that okay, how can I add more value? And for a country like Nigeria, I think we should not be scared to embrace it. We have a very young population that can still learn and adopt these things to improve their value, right? So the way I'm seeing it is increasing our capacity, right, to do better. So if what I'm doing today is at the risk of AI, then I start asking myself, what other things can I do that this AI can enable? So it means constantly upscaling, right? Finding that new terrain that is opening. It's also opening new jobs. There are jobs for annotation where people are helping the AI, training the AI to become better. It's human behind that training too, right? So for me, I think the question is, how are we preparing ourselves to also embrace it and increase our productive capacity? You can't stop the train, right? We can't legislate against it. Are you getting me? What we can do is, how do we equip our people so that they can better be prepared to take on the new era that this AI development will usher, right? And you would see that even in China, right? Before, China used to be known for cheap labor, but now it's not longer cheap. People are going there because of the quality of the labor. You don't find such thousand number of people, millions of people that could work on chips any other place, right? So if we are talking about the quality of the attention or the skills that they have to produce something of impeccable quality, right? That's something that a lot of people are going there for. So the question is, how can we use this to better the productivity of our own uh, SMEs, our artisans as well? If you are making shoe, if you are making clothes, how can you use this to better your productivity, to better your processes? And I think that's the promise that.
So this is a yes or no question now. Do you think that MSMEs in Nigeria have rightly unlocked the potential of AI to innovate their businesses?
No.
Do you think enough MSMEs have done that? No. Oh well. Thank you very much, Bello, for the discussion. Thank you for the time and the insight. Well, that's all we can take. And you're welcome. That's all we can take on today's episode of The Big Story. Do stay with us and keep watching Business Day TV. I am Bethel Olujobi.